You know, I like this picture, but it just feels like something's missing. There we go, that's better, that's what I'm talking about. You know, our parents always told us not to reveal ourselves to strangers on the internet. If they know our face, they might know our school, our address, our social. But then Nintendo said, here kid, shove your face into the TV and make a digital representation of yourself. We don't care if you think you're ugly, just do it. Digital avatars aren't anything uncommon for video games. The Xbox 360 had these avatars that fit right into the uncanny valley. The Sims is a popular game series, and Animal Crossing definitely intends for the main character to represent you. But Nintendo is the one who really struck gold. Let's take a bit of a history lesson. The Nintendo Wii released in 2006 and was trying to market games to a much wider audience, much like the DS before it. This was done through tricking old people into thinking they were bowling, apps reminiscent of TV channels, a controller shaped like a TV remote, and so on. But one of these things was putting you into TV. Yeah, get over here and get inside. We're Persona 4ing this crap. I guess they thought their audience would have fun trying to recreate themselves, friends, and family on the Wii, but instead people just shat out Peter Griffin and called it a day. Now, we can't talk about Miis without first talking about the Mii channel. I mean, literally everybody remembers the Mii channel music, but then again, that might be the only thing Gen Z really remembers about it. So, the Mii channel is where you actually create the Miis. Help, I think my Wiimote has Parkinson's. I shouldn't have to describe what a Mii is, just look at it and tell me what you think. Satan! You have a plethora of customization options. You can change your face shape, your hairstyle. Ah yes, my favorite hairstyle, hat. You can customize your eyebrows, eyes, nose, mouth, and add glasses, mustaches, or beards. Honestly, not sure how glasses are related to those two, but it is what it is. And what it is stupid. Now, why don't we meet some of our friends? This is Juan Cena. He was supposed to be John Cena, but I kinda butchered him halfway through, so now he's just the bootleg version. Our next fake person is Matt from Wii Sports. I have nothing to say for myself. Matt. And last but not least, it's the infamous stand user, Hank Hill. I've consumed my fair share of propane in my day. I think he'd be pretty proud of that. Once you have a few Miis created, you can find them just chilling in this sort of limbo area. If you blow this whistle, they'll all line up next to each other so you can easily find the one you want to look at. You can then edit the Miis if they're not to your liking, or you can just straight up erase them from existence. If you thought that was it, nope. Nintendo was really hoping their audience would faithfully recreate themselves as Miis, and they didn't want to let that good deed go unrewarded. As such, you can find Miis in a plethora of games on the Wii, so that 6-year-old girls and grandmas alike could really insert themselves into these video games. Ah yes, I too remember when my grandma fought fucking Mike Tyson in a boxing arena. And that brings us to our first and most famous game, Wii Sports. You can play baseball, boxing, golf, tennis, and basketball, but honestly, I think most people just played bowling. You can play exclusively as Miis in this game, which when coupled with the motion controls makes it feel like you're really playing the game. Yeah, you keep telling yourself that. Is that not enough for you? Well, there's actually an entire Wii series that uses Miis. Wii Play is a minigame collection featuring Miis. Wii Fit tells your Mii that it's a fat ass. Wii Party is basically Mario Party but with Miis, even being developed by the same people who went on to develop Mario Party. Wii Music lets your Mii play instruments with motion controls, and Wii Sports Resort lets your grandma live out her dreams of dueling someone with swords. But Nintendo just had to keep beating this dead horse. The Miis still showed up in games that weren't a part of the Wii series. Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games uses Miis as playable characters. There are a few mini-games in Mario Party 8 that utilize Miis. Mario Kart Wii lets you drive as your Mii. You know, I was one of those kids who learned to drive from Mario Kart Wii. After seeing Luigi down a Miller Lite in the middle of a race, it's no wonder I have a DUI. Miis can also be found driving as obstacles in Coconut Mall. Or they used to anyway. Also, you can wear a Mii head as a mask in Animal Crossing City Folk. Yeah, no, this just isn't right. Miis were originally considered to be playable characters in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, but Sakurai eventually settled against it, believing that having people put themselves in the game would incite bullying. I would be inclined to agree if the Miis weren't committing vehicular assault on the regular in Mario Kart Wii. From the Mii Maker, you could actually send Miis to the DS, but it didn't really matter because there are only a few games on the DS that use Miis. I find this really odd, since at this time, the Wii and DS were both doing numbers for Nintendo, and they were both hitting home on making games accessible to a wider audience than just core gamers. Considering Nintendo used Miis in so many games on the Wii, it's surprising they didn't utilize them more on the DS. especially since a person who had one system probably had both of them, and it would have been no trouble sending the Miis over. Alas, onto the next console. Now let's talk about the Miis in the Wii U era. I know 3DS came first, but I don't care. Time is just an imaginary construct made up by insignificant humans. You may claim to know when Jesus was born, but can you prove it? Were you there when it happened? Yeah, that's what I thought. Just like the Wii U also had a Mii Maker. I would be kind of concerned if it didn't, you know? It's more or less the same as the Wii version, which is a little unfortunate considering you can still get to the old Mii Maker by accessing the Wii menu. I mean, the UI is more polished here, but nothing beats the classic. I think there are some new options for hair, noses, etc., but I don't care enough to figure out what they are. What I do know is that now you can make a Mii from your likeness using the camera. Yeah, this is horrifying. This thing is clearly suffering. Yeah, I like this one. Also, around this point was when Nintendo started going all in on having Nintendo accounts, with Miis being used for your profile. Likewise, this is around the point that Miiverse started. Do kids these days know what Miiverse is? Well, you know that one stage in Smash Bros. It's not in Smash anymore. Anyway, Miiverse was essentially a social media by Nintendo where your avatars were, of course, Miis. I used this a lot back in the day on the 3DS. Yup, it was also on 3DS. A lot of the Wii U stuff I just talked about goes for the 3DS as well. They were on the market at the same time, so Nintendo tried to link the two as much as they could, so you could use the same account on both consoles rather than having one for each console. It's a good change from the Wii, where your online purchases and stuff like that were tied to the console itself rather than an account. I guess I should talk about the 3DS before I get on to talking about the Wii U games with Miis, since a lot of the 3DS games with Miis are pretty similar, and I want to knock out two birds with one brick. I feel like the 3DS Mii Maker was probably the one I got the most use out of. I had a Wii, of course, and I loved the hell out of that thing, but having a handheld Mii Maker with you at all times is limitless fun. Yeah, I was that one kid who brought his 3DS everywhere. I mean, that was literally the point of the 3DS, what with Street Pass and all. Oh yeah, might as well talk about that while I'm thinking about it. And Pizza Hut. I don't know why, I think about Street Pass and like I get memories of Pizza Hut. I don't know what's up with that. Street Pass was a function on the 3DS that would transfer certain data between people's 3DSs when they passed each other on the street. I thought this was a really cool feature to somewhat connect with fellow gamers, and I really don't understand why it's not on the Switch. Like, the Switch is just the natural evolution of the 3DS as a handheld console, and yet it's missing some of the 3DS's most basic features, like themes, folders, and of course Street Pass. Okay, so disregard part of that statement. It's just my luck that Nintendo adds folders to the Switch while I'm working on a video where I say there are no folders. Maybe themes have hope? I don't know, back to your regularly scheduled programming. But that's enough ranting. Let's talk about the Street Pass Mii Plaza. This was a free app that comes pre-installed on all 3DS's and one that I've always been fond of. When you pass someone who also has Street Pass activated on their 3DS, their Miis will show up in your plaza, which is a cool way of showing how many fellow Nintendo fans you've possibly met. This stuff is really cool for conventions and stuff, you know? I'm pretty sure there were even some special Miis that Nintendo would send to your plaza, like Miis of Iwata and stuff like that. The game has several mini-games you can play, but only a few of them existed at launch. Puzzle Swap features many puzzles based on Nintendo games, but you have to fill the puzzles based on the pieces given to you by people you Street Pass with. I personally always loved this, which is odd because I suck at puzzles. I guess it was the Nintendo aspect that did it for me. That or I was just smarter as a kid, which is probably true. The other probably more famous game that was available at launch was Find Me. You may recognize it due to the stage based on it in Smash Bros. This was essentially an RPG where you had to beat enemies only using the Miis of the people you've met in order to save your own Mii. Now, that's about all my experience with the Mii Plaza, but they did eventually release more games within it as DLC. I didn't feel like buying them was very worth it though, so I haven't played them. I don't feel very qualified to talk about them, but I'll list them off for you. We have Street Pass Squad, Street Pass Garden, Street Pass Battle, Street Pass Mansion, Street Pass Fishing, Street Pass Zombies, and oh my god, it never ends! Screw it, you can figure the rest out yourself if you think it's worth your time. It's probably not. One interesting thing though is that some of these games were developed by Goodfeel or Grezzo. I don't know if you care about that, but I do. Now let's talk about some of the notable uses of Miis in games for both 3DS and Wii U. You can play as Miis in both Mario Kart 7 and Mario Kart 8, as well as both the 3DS and Wii U versions of Smash 4. I guess Sakurai decided he liked bullying after all. Miis returned in Wii Fit U and Wii Party U, but I don't feel like I need to say much about those since we talked about their predecessors. Certain game modes in New Super Mario Bros. U let you play as Miis, and of course Miis are the star of the show in Nintendo Land. I won't talk about Nintendo Land too much since this is more to show off the application of Miis throughout games rather than reviewing Nintendo Land, but it's basically a party game featuring many smaller games based on various Nintendo properties. You can also play as Miis in Pilot Wings Resort, Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing Transformed, that's a freaking mouthful bro, Mario Tennis Open, and so on. Oh yeah, and I think Rusty's Real Deal Baseball also used Miis. It was basically a game where you have to haggle with a dog named Rusty to get minigames within the game, while also kind of feeling bad because he's losing money that he needs to take care of his children. Nick Robinson did a really good video where he discovered a completely unknown character within the game. I recommend it. But now it's time to get to the real meat and potatoes of Miis on 3DS, besides Street Pass that is. May I introduce you to one of my favorite 3DS games from back in the day, Tomodachi Life. I refrained from talking about the first Tomodachi game for the DS because I knew I'd focus a lot on this game, and the first game was only released in Japan. This is a life simulation game in the vein of Animal Crossing and The Sims, but featuring Miis. You can import your Miis from the Mii Maker to live in this apartment complex that can hold up to 100 Miis. You can also scan Miis from the internet in your game through QR codes. Did you scan my Obama QR code? These Miis all have different personalities and needs that you need to tend to. You can buy them clothes, gift them various items like a 3DS, watch them get married with other Miis, have kids, and get divorced. You can have them perform your own custom musical performances, and so on. There's just so much personality in this game, and the best part is that the personality comes from you. Or more likely, the internet. The internet is a wonderful place for finding great Miis. But we can't talk about Tomodachi Life without talking about its successor, Miitopia. I also fell in love with this game when it came out. It was released around the time when the Switch had already been released, but the 3DS was still going strong, and since I didn't have a Switch yet, I spent a lot of time with this game and Fire Emblem Echoes. Miitopia basically takes Tomodachi Life and turns it into an RPG. You still import your own Miis or use the internet to get them, which is actually a lot easier this time since there's an entire browser system within the game to find Miis. Once you have your Miis, you can give them different classes. Due to plot events throughout the game, you actually end up with several teams of 4, so you'll have no shortage of slots to fill. There are also less important members of the cast that you may find in villages or something, and when you first encounter them, they'll just have like a random Mii from the internet assigned to them. This can make for some interesting first impressions that you won't expect, but of course, you can select the Mii that'll fill their role if you want. I guess Nintendo thought this game was good as well because it eventually came to Nintendo Switch, being the first 3DS game by Nintendo to do so. I'll get back to you on that though, since now it's time to talk about the Switch. The Switch does have a Mii Maker, but in comparison to older ones, it's kind of lost the charm it once had, just like most of the Switch UI. All of the menus look the same, and this is no exception. This just feels so bare bones. I mean, don't get me wrong, this was the most customization we've ever had for Mii, since we can actually use irregular hair colors now, but still, would you rather have this over this? It's no longer mandatory to have a Mii like it was in the Wii U era. We now have profile pictures based on Nintendo characters, but even then, there's not a lot of variety. Nintendo has started releasing more profile pictures as rewards for Nintendo Switch Online members recently though, so that's kind of good I guess. If you don't want to use a profile picture based on a Nintendo game, you can always use a Mii. Miis are pretty much playable everywhere on the Switch you think they'd be. They're in Smash Ultimate, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and Mario Golf Super Rush, but we talked about most of those games' predecessors, so I'll just spare you that. Okay, back to Miitopia. The Switch version of Miitopia lets us do more with Miis than we could ever do before. It adds various kinds of wigs and makeup that really shake up the Mii creation scene. Like, look at some of these Miis. I may have nostalgia goggles for the original Mii channel, but do you think we could make stuff like this back then? On the other hand though, while this is certainly impressive, can we even call these Miis anymore? It seems Nintendo hated what we'd done because during one fateful direct at about now o'clock, we were met with this. Dear God, what are those things? The second people laid eyes on those Mii replacements, they were disgusted. Nintendo received all sorts of backlash from the community for ruining a perfectly good avatar format with whatever the hell these are. I would be inclined to agree, but these people clearly didn't pay enough attention. During what I can only describe as a Nintendo Switch Sports Let's Play in the middle of the Direct, Mr. Takahashi and Mr. Koizumi were playing as their own Miis. If that's not enough to quell your insatiable bloodlust for Nintendo, well, I mean, honestly, that's kind of reasonable. Nintendo makes a lot of strange choices that only do harm to their fans, so yeah, keep hating Nintendo. Never forget, you can be critical of a company but still enjoy their games. Still buying a game you know you'll enjoy doesn't make you a corporate bootlegger. Back to Switch Sports, it's kind of unfortunate that the Miis aren't front and center anymore. Like, this is a successor to Wii Sports, and you don't even make the Miis the mascots? But the fact that they're in the game at all is good enough for me. Oh yeah, and some people don't like the proportions and like the body shape and whatever, but like, does that really matter? Miis have never had a consistent body style. It's different in like every game, so. And that's pretty much all I can say about the Miis. There are a few mobile games that use them as avatars, such as Super Mario Run, Pikmin Bloom, and Miitomo, and you can play as them in Mario Kart Tour, but like, I don't play Nintendo's mobile games and don't plan on it, so you can keep your dirty cellular devices to yourself. You know, I'm sure Barack Obama wholeheartedly approves of the fact that I'm his favorite Mii. But that's about... Wait, what's going on? Oh, I think I feel a trailer coming on. Wait, no, stop!